Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all the places at Hawk Blogger. And this is a pretty fun Friday, I gotta say. I'm psyched. Making up for the fact that I'm back in cloudy Seattle and no longer in Palm Springs, but we have officially got our combine credentials and got locked and loaded with not just myself, but Nathan Ernst of the Real Hawk Talk crew will be joining me in Indianapolis next week. Not to mention, Dana O'Gorman will also be there. She'll be there on behalf of our turf, the other program that she runs with a bunch of folks. So we're gonna have three of the Real Hawk Talk crew in Indianapolis for the combine, which is very cool. We're gonna bring you a ton of great coverage. Not only did we get approved for our combine credentials, but we also got approved for a spot on Radio Row. So we will be on Radio Row, which hopefully will get us a lot of great access to some great guests that we will bring on the show. I think we are going to have a ton of content next week. I can't even predict exactly what it will be or how much it will be, but it will be a lot. I can assure you of that. I can also tell you, just to give you some idea of what's coming up timeline wise, John Schneider's press conference. Let me just make sure I've got the right timing here. John Schneider's press conference will be 1 o'clock on Tuesday, and I believe, let me just double check if that is Eastern time. I'm guessing it's Central time, whatever Indianapolis is on. And then Mike McDonald will be 1 o'clock Wednesday. So John Schneider will be 1 o'clock Tuesday. Mike McDonald will be 1 o'clock the next day. So we'll be there. I'll be there for both those press conferences asking questions. I'll also have the ability to go and attend any of the other coaches' press conferences or GM press conferences, ask questions there. So we have a ton of prospect availability. So we'll be able to talk to prospects, hopefully talk to agents. It's going to be busy. It's going to be amazing. I cannot wait. So make sure you have already clicked subscribe. Make sure you've clicked the bell to get notified, because that's the only way you'll know when these shows are going to happen. I cannot tell you right now what our schedule is going to be like. There might be some marathon episodes that we do. So just keep an eye on that. And also, anything you can do to support, patreon.com/hawkblogger, join as a YouTube member, all that stuff would be great. I'm buying some extra equipment to make sure Nathan and I can split up and do enough coverage. All you guys supporting the show makes it possible for me to be able to do this full time, and I greatly appreciate all of that. So we've already got Bryce Coots, who has gifted 10 Hawk Blogger memberships, kicking in. Always appreciate it, Bryce. Thank you so much. And very, very excited. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. So focus of the show this morning, we had our benefit of our John Schneider appearance on the show with Wyman and Bob yesterday. And I think it's by no accident that pretty early in the series this year, the guys gave John Schneider an opportunity to kind of respond to the viral comments he made last year about interior offensive linemen being overdrafted and overpaid. What does he mean by that? And a lot of folks have taken him to task for it. I certainly have. And I've also provided this past year, as I got additional access and have a chance to talk to more folks in the organization, some more clarity on what I think the organization or what they believe that the implications of that statement were. And so what I heard from John Schneider yesterday, frankly, did not surprise me. It was a lot of things I already had understood that the team believes. But I'm going to play it for you, and it's a bit of a long segment, but I want to play this particular part of it. And then I want to talk to you about why you're going to hear from tons of folks. I've already seen it online. I'm just going to take John Schneider to task for this. Like, he is, I cannot believe he said that. You're not going to hear that from me. So I'm willing to step out there and criticize, as I've often done. I also just want to keep it real. And so I'm going to go over some reasons why I think that people are once again, potentially, focusing on the wrong thing here. And I think, honestly, I'm going to share why I think John Schneider maybe is focusing on the wrong thing as well. I'll do that in just a second. Bryce Coots has already given another super chat. Says, congratulations, Brian. Can't wait to watch your coverage from the Combine. Hope you guys have a blast. I hope we do as well. I hope you guys have a blast. Part of the goal here is to bring you guys along for the ride and get a feel for the whole experience. So, all right. So let me play for you what John Schneider said yesterday regarding his comments from the previous year about interior offensive linemen being overdrafted and overpaid. Here is John Schneider on that.
Yeah, so it's like we talked about supply and demand, and so it's really it's never like a level of like it's not important, or like we have this philosophy where we don't
you don't value them.
Yeah, like I worked with somebody that used to say a guard is a guard is a guard, and you don't pay them. I did work with somebody like that, right, in my past, but that's not the case with us. It's really like, okay, we have to put a value on people on people at the end of the day, and that's just I know exactly what you're talking about, because it was really like, yeah, it's and it happens every year. We see, we'll see it this weekend too. When we go down on the Combine, yeah, they'll be like, hey, the guys, this player is we would grade him as a solid backup or a solid starter. There's 2 grades like that. This guy's a solid starter. The guy might be a solid backup in our eyes, but he's going to get paid like a difference maker, which is 2 grades up, right? It's like, whoa, so I don't know that.
So that was the back half. I'm going to kind of play these a little bit out of order. That was the back half of the conversation. And the part there that he wanted, I think, to emphasize is that he values the position. So he has worked in organizations in the past where they didn't value the guard position and they thought anybody could play that position. And so you're not going to put real dollars into that. He's trying in that statement to clarify this isn't about the fact that I don't value that position. He's just saying there's guys that we see as backups or average players that are being paid like difference makers. I'm going to talk to you through some specific examples of, I think, what he looks at in just a second to get at that point more. Before I do that, I want to play the beginning of this conversation where he kind of talks about a little bit more, this statement that he made last year and what he meant.
Made a statement that guards were often overdrafted and overpaid.
Yes.
We've seen the team have trouble at that spot.
Yes.
It looks like an area of need.
Yes.
Has your philosophy changed on that at all, or morphed at all based on what the experience has been?
Well, I would say that it's the statement, I guess, is really, it's not a level of importance. It's extremely important. It's highly valued, but we still to this day, because of the dearth of talent at the position, will overpay at that position and will overdraft at that position. And we've been guilty of it, and we probably will be guilty of it in the future as well. It's just based on a level of talent. So it's not. It's a position that everybody is looking for, right? And we talked about the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, like what happened there, right? And they have that was rough. That was a rough go for those guys. I mean, every team, I would say there's probably about 2 or 3 teams that have really good offensive lines. I'm talking college football, pro football, everything, right? So the philosophy is not like we're not gonna like overpay. We probably will because we have to, right?
Right.
But you have to be smart with those decisions, right? So what is the difference in, are we gonna take away? Are we gonna overpay? Are we gonna overpay a guard and lose out on a defensive tackle? No, we'd rather pay the player that we think is a better talent. It's kind of like drafting for need, right? In the draft, right? Are you going to just, you have to take this player, and then you go right by, Dave Wyman, who's a better player than the offensive lineman because, I've seen him smash guards.
Hey, hold on. This is the first time he's said something positive.
Oh, slow down there, Sheriff.
Playing ability.
This guy was smash people, man. But yeah, so it's like we talked about supply and demand, and so it's really it's never like a level of.
So that gets back into what we just heard. So there's a fair amount there, and I can tell you right now, here's what's going to be the reaction from the broader fan base, the I think some of the folks in media that cover is going to be like, wait a second, is he saying that they have overdrafted and overpaid before? Because who is he talking about? And we can talk about that a little bit. Again, I think that's the wrong thing to focus on. I mean, if you want to just jam him up on it, fine. But here's the thing. If you really are listening to what John Schneider says in this statement, he is saying a few different things. One, he values the position. Two, there aren't a lot of good ones out there. Three, there are a lot, basically every team is looking for that position, right? So that's three things right off the jump that he's basically saying, here's the market. Like, there's not a lot of good ones. Everybody's after him. And then he's getting into the fact that you probably are going to have to overdraft and overpay to get somebody there. 4. 5, he is saying, hey, guess what? If we have the choice of adding a great player or adding a good one or an okay one at the same price or similar price, we're going to add the great player. That's the part of this that I think people are going to skip right past and not understand. And I'm now going to walk you through some examples of, I think, the types of decisions that he's making based on that philosophy. And I think that if you ask the Seahawks, they would say part of their philosophy is we pay good players. That is, like, they're not saying that they never make mistakes and that they pay bad players, but where they're willing to expend resource is for a guy that they believe is a difference maker. And that if given the opportunity, they will always choose the player who they think is great for a similar price to a player who is not great. Now that sounds like obvious, but that's the situation he's in as a GM, and all the GMs are in. You have a hard salary cap. You have a certain amount of money that it's a zero-sum game. If you allot money to one position or one player, that's money that you can't allot to another. And so what I hear John Schneider saying, and I could pick it like how he's saying it and kind of the the different parts of it that he is playing, and I think he's trying to kind of, I think he's trying to navigate something where he should just be like straightforward with his perspective. But what he's getting at is, one, like, if you heard him there, he at the very beginning, he acknowledged, yeah, we need to get better there. Like, it wasn't a big part of the conversation, but he acknowledged, yeah, we need to get better there. So I'm going to talk you through some of what I think some of his examples are in his head of this kind of situation of we're going to pay good players. This is from last year's free agent class, okay? All positions last year. And if you get to average value per year in the contracts, okay? You get to a guy like Christian Wilkins getting paid $27.5 million. Now, I don't know if the Raiders feel good about that yet, but Christian Wilkins is pretty clearly a very good player, has been. Danielle Hunter got paid $24.5 million. He is an excellent player. You've got Leonard Williams paid at $21.5 million. Also, excellent player who the Seahawks, guess what, paid. Next on the list, right below $20 million a year, Robert Hunt. Robert Hunt, who was a guard for the Miami Dolphins, signed by the Carolina Panthers for $100 million total, $63 million fully guaranteed. Leonard Williams got $43 million fully guaranteed. Robert Hunt got $63. Now, how was Robert Hunt last year as a player? Not great, folks. Not great. In fact, I'm going to go through and I'm going I'm going to do some things that are probably going to like be maybe surprising to some of you. But if we look at pressures surrendered and we look at Robert Hunt, he gave up 36 pressures last year. That was 9th most among all guards in the NFL. 36 pressures. Laken Tomlinson, who everybody in Seattle was like, oh my God, how come this guy's our starting guard? He gave up 38 pressures. He was essentially the same player. In fact, Laken Tomlinson had a better pass blocking grade than Robert Hunt last year. Laken Tomlinson got $1.5 million. Okay? And I think you got pretty similar play overall, especially from a pass protection standpoint. All right, let's keep going down the list of some of these high-priced players. That was Robert Hunt at $20 million a year. Jonathan Greenard, $19 million a year, was amazing as a edge rusher for the Vikings. A fantastic signing. I would say probably worth every bit of what they paid him. Next below him, actually tied with him, Michael Onwenu, a guard for the New England Patriots. Now, where is Michael Onwenu? Michael Onwenu he gave up 31 pressures last year. He had a 57 run blocking grade. Where did he rank overall among guards? In PFF grade, if you just want to look at PFF grade for whatever that's worth, he was 35th. He was 35th on that list. Laken Tomlinson was 46th. So Michael Onwenu had a 65 grade overall. Laken Tomlinson had a 62 grade. Again, Michael Onwenu paid $19 million a year, $36.5 million fully guaranteed. $36.5 million fully. Laken Tomlinson got $1.5 million. Okay? I gotta keep repeating, like, this is what I think. You're looking at John Schneider and you're saying, what are you talking about, GM? Well, this is what he's talking about. Let's keep going through this list. Jonah Jackson gets $17 million a year. Now, I'm going to point the finger at myself. I'll be a thumb pointer, as they like to say. I was a big Jonah Jackson guy. I wanted them to sign him in free agency. He was a big mauling guard. The Rams spent $17 million a year, fully guaranteed $34 million. Jonah Jackson last year was a disaster. A disaster for the Rams. In fact, I don't think he even shows up on, I'm going to double check. I'm not sure he even shows up on my list here because I don't know if he played enough snaps to show up on the list. Let me try now. Yeah, he played 267 snaps. He only played in 5 games last year. And when he did play, he had a 59.5 pass blocking grade. He gave up pressures left and right. So he played 5 games, 267 snaps. And once again, I mean, he was basically what Robert Hunt was, except Robert Hunt played more snaps. They were very similarly graded overall as a player. So now you got Jonah Jackson on that list. Who was right below Jonah Jackson on the free agent spending spree? Xavier McKinney, safety for the Packers, got paid $16.750 million per year, $23 million fully guaranteed. Xavier McKinney was like defensive player of the year at times. He was an all-pro level safety. Jonah Jackson, Xavier McKinney. Difference maker? Not a difference maker. You keep going down this list. You've got guys like Damian Lewis getting paid the same amount as Patrick Queen. Now, some people might be big on Damian Lewis. That's fine. I think he had a better year than some of these other guys. but he still was a significant. I mean, you're talking about 26 million fully guaranteed, 13 million a year. That's a big deal. It's a lot of money. That's more money, by the way, than Saquon Barkley got last year. It's more money than Josh Jacobs got. It's more money than Aziz Al-Shair got. So I think part of the point here is if you look through, I'm going to go through one more example. You go down, John Runyon was a big guard signing last year for the Giants. $10 million per year for John Runyon. 26 years old, so he's young. 17 million fully guaranteed. John Runyon, not good. Not good. John Runyon was ranked 91st out of 100 starting guards last year with a 56 grade. Gave up 29 pressures. So again, I think what I would say John Schneider has right is that a lot of the players that are getting paid big dollars in free agency are not worth it at the guard position. But I went through some other names that are defensive tackles, edge players, safeties, running backs, who actually earned the money that they were paid. And at the end of the day, what you're really looking for is an ROI. And I see in the chat from Crumpled Zinc, well, what about Mekhi Becton? 100%. You could say Mekhi Becton. Now, Mekhi Becton was signed for much less. Mekhi Becton was, I think he'll show up as, let me find him real quick. Mekhi Becton was signed for $2.75 million. But he was signed, he had been a tackle, right? And why was Mekhi Becton as good as he was this year? Was it because he was always that good? No, it's because what's the other thing that John Schneider's been emphasizing? You've got to not just identify these players. That's on the personnel department and the coaching staff, but you've got to develop them. And Jeff Stoutland is kind of the preeminent offensive line guru nowadays. And he took somebody who was not that good and was kind of, finding his way out of the league and made him into one of the premium free agents this year. So development does matter, and you have to give some credence to the fact that coaching matters. The other thing that John Schneider talked about in this appearance was they have now added, Rick Dennison. Hold on one second. I got to get the whole Seahawks coaching staff up because there's so many guys that they have added. So you've already added Clint Kubiak, who is focused on that. You've got John Benton, who you've added in that regard. You've got Andrew Janocko, who's had experience in that regard as well. You've now, in addition to that, you have added. They don't have him up on the list yet. Why aren't they shown on here? There's Rick Dennison. So Rick Dennison. And then beyond that, where's the other? Oh, there he is. Justin Outen. So you've got multiple guys, like 3, 4, 5 guys who are all focused on the run game and on offensive line development, and guys that have had a ton of experience working with and developing offensive linemen and working within a specific system. So I think if you want to really assess John Schneider and Mike Macdonald for that matter, don't just assess them on who they add as a player, assess them on who they're adding as coaches. And have they created an environment where they can optimize the offensive line investments that they make? And I think there's a pretty good case to say that they're in a better position now to develop offensive linemen than they've been for many, many years, probably since Tom Cable. And yes, I know Tom Cable is a polarizing figure among Seahawks fans. If you haven't listened to his appearance on the Get Got pod with Marshawn Lynch and Michael Robinson, highly recommend it, because I think you'll actually hear the reality of what kind of man he is from a coaching standpoint, what kind of respect he demanded, what kind of bar he held for that line group, how he motivated them, how he crafted them. There's a lot there. And Tom Cable did that in multiple places where he built up tough, gritty offensive lines. I think that they're in a better position now to have multiple line coaches that can be working with guys and getting the best out of them. And I think that that's something to be celebrated. And I think that they've got to be able to do better identifying them. So I think that that's the case as well. But this is why, I don't kill the Seahawks for the Laken Tomlinson signing last year. I know a lot of people do, and that's fine. But Laken Tomlinson at $1.2 million, you got significantly more value than that relative to the rest of the guard market. I'm not saying he was a great guard, but Laken Tomlinson, for what it's worth, ends up being a passable, like he is in the middle tier of starting guards last year. You might think that's crazy, but I think it's true. I think it's the reality. So I don't think that they should bring him back as a starter. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they shouldn't spend money on it. And this is why I've been a Trey Smith supporter, because I think Trey Smith is someone who is worth investing highly in. Now, admittedly, by the way, Trey Smith, quietly not the best pass protector. Trey Smith gave up 27 hurries last year. He gave up 34 overall pressures. It's not a lot different than Laken Tomlinson giving up 38. He gave up 6 sacks. Or no, he gave up 1 sack. That's one of the differences. He gave up 6 hits. Laken Tomlinson gave up 8. But Trey Smith is an elite run blocker, an elite zone blocker. He's just better. Now, Mekhi Becton gave up 34 pressures this year. Again, that's not a lot different than Laken Tomlinson's 38. So you got to be really sure you're going to want to spend that money on Laken Tomlinson. I'll give you another free agent guard, a guy that was signed to a big deal. This was not last year. This was, I believe, maybe it was last year. Let me double check. Yes, it was last year. So Nick Allegretti was signed from the Chiefs to play for the Redskins. This is not a huge deal. 3-year deal, $5 million per year. This is probably in the range where the Seahawks could potentially find themselves. Allegretti gave up 46 pressures last year. That was the second most pressures in the NFL. So the reality is, if teams are letting somebody go at a position where there is high demand, the chances are that they're not necessarily that great and that you're probably going to be paying them significantly more than they're worth. And I think what John Schneider would tell you is, all right, would you have rather me spent the money on Robert Hunt or on Leonard Williams? Like, if those are your choices, which would you rather do? That's what I think his position would be. And I think if you look at it that way, you'd say that they made the right evaluation, that keeping Leonard Williams makes this team better compared to then if they had signed Robert Hunt. But where I think that logic falls a little short is, yeah, but you spent a lot of money on Noah Fant. In fact, you spent, I'm going to double check this, make sure I've got it right. But I think you spent similarly on Noah Fant to what Damian Lewis got. Noah Fant got $10.5 million per year on a 2-year deal. So $21 million deal. Damian Lewis got $13 million a year. So that's in the vicinity. I mean, that's $3 million a year difference. Now, the full guarantees on Lewis's deal, $26 million. On Noah Fant, it's only $11 million. So they are significantly different deals. The full value of Damian Lewis's deal is $53 million. Full value of Noah Fant's deal is just $21 million. So they are different, and you can't just replace one with the other. But in those situations, you're kind of like, well, did you really make sure you spent the money on a good player? I think Noah Fant and Damian Lewis are pretty comparable in terms of where they rank within their position and amount of impact. I was never a big Damian Lewis guy. I thought he was pretty inconsistent. I thought he was an okay player. In today's NFL, that makes him a very valuable guard. I did not cry. In fact, I was pretty happy when the Seahawks did not pay Damian Lewis what he was paid. I don't think he is worth $13 million a year. I would rather that money go elsewhere. I would not rather that money go to Noah Fant, though, to be very clear. So I think that where this ends up for me is I'm glad to hear John Schneider acknowledge they're probably going to have to overdraft and overpay some people because that's how it is. That's how it is right now. You got to do it. I'm glad that he seems very clear that position is a problematic area for his team. I would disagree with him that there's only 2 or 3 good offensive lines. I think there's more than that. I think, obviously the Lions, the Eagles come to mind. I think the Packers have a pretty good offensive line. I think the Vikings, when healthy, they had some, I wouldn't say they were in the really good offensive line. I'll take that back. But I think there's a few teams that I would put on that list of having a pretty good offensive line. I think the Chiefs, when they were healthier, had a pretty good offensive line. I think the Bills have a very good offensive line. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but I think that there's more than just a couple. And I also think I don't really care. Like if there's one or there's two, guess who's winning divisions and conferences and rings? It's teams that are very good. So let's not cry about it. Let's not make excuses about it. Let's not talk about the fact that they're overdrafted and overpaid. I don't think that matters. That's my point in all this. The only thing that matters is how have you done at creating an advantage on the line of scrimmage? And right now, the Seahawks have not done a good job. In fact, they've done one of the worst jobs in the NFL. If the Seahawks had been a mediocre offensive line for a number of years, John Schneider would not be getting hammered on this in the same way. He'd get questions because it's always going to be important. But if the Seahawks were middle of the pack, I don't think he would be the punching bag that he is right now on this topic. So you have to be aware enough that you cannot, on one hand, come out and talk about, I won't say whine about, but it comes across as like a little bit complaining about the fact that this is the market for guards. And then also not have a viable plan that's worked so far to address the position. And you can't say, well, we're signing players that are good players and we're not going to sign bad guards. Well, how has that been working? Like, is your team making the playoffs every year? Is your team winning the division every year? Is your team winning playoff games, winning, championships? If the answer is no to those things, then I don't think you can sit there and kind of patronize fans or media members into saying, well, like, look, we see it clearly. You guys don't get it. You should be like, maybe even like a little bit grateful that we're making these decisions to sign Leonard Williams instead of signing some of these bad players. I don't think John's thinking that. specifically, but I think it can come across that way. And honestly, this is one of those moments where it's like, you know what? The only way to handle this, if I'm Dave Pearson on the PR side, the only way to handle it from my perspective is, you know what? We're not good enough. We're going to get better. We're going to do everything we need to be great on the offensive line, period. That's what you got to say. And you got to say it over and over again. Until we are the best offensive line in the NFL, we're not done. We're going to explore every avenue, free agent, trade, draft, coaches, everything to make this a great offensive line. That's my job. And we're going to make sure it happens. That should be the message over and over and over again until you see it on the field. And I think about it similarly to the way that you see, a head coach, Mike Macdonald, come up after a game. We weren't good enough. We lost. We weren't good enough. I wasn't good enough. We need to be better. You hear that all the time from coaches after a loss. I think you need to hear that from John Schneider. I think you need to hear, we haven't been good enough yet. We haven't been good enough at identifying. We haven't been good enough at developing. We have to get better. We're committed to getting better. I think that's the message that's missing. And I think the farther they go down this path of trying to explain what this overdrafted and overpaid thing is, I think the further they are from actually making any headway with fans on this topic. All right. With that, I think we've covered the super chats. Those are the big things I wanted to cover today. I've got a couple other things I'm going to be getting to soon. Before I let you go, we haven't done a mock draft for a while. So of course we're going to do a mock draft. Let's go ahead. Let's do mock draft database. All right. We'll do mock draft database for our mock draft. We'll do at least one. Maybe we'll do more. And I will tell you, some of the guys that I've been talking to you about have certainly been popping for others. But like Tyler Shuck is a guy that I'd been talking about, and Dane Brugler mentioned him yesterday when he was on the show, and now I'm seeing Greg Cosell has got him as his number 2, QB2, which is pretty high. But interesting. Before I get into this mock draft, one last thing I'll say. I really always listen to smart people, and I think Dane Brugler is a really smart person, and there's nobody that does more of their homework than him. There's nothing he said yesterday that changed my mind about Joe Milton being a better option than some of these other guys. He talked about the fact that he has an elite arm, like he could just rocket the ball into places that other people can't. His biggest criticism was that he just never did it consistently, and that he can't ignore the faults that he saw over 6 years in college. If he didn't figure it out then, what's he going to figure out now? Well, now here we are talking about guys in similar situations coming out. Shedeur Sanders is not going to get a strong arm in the NFL. He's not going to get a stronger arm. You can't develop a stronger arm in that way. I see him holding onto the ball a long time. I see other situations with some of these quarterbacks where I'm like, okay, I have not seen what I saw from Joe Milton in that game from a lot of these quarterbacks. And so for what it's worth, that's where I'm still at. I would trade a 3rd round pick for Joe Milton over drafting any of these guys on day 2. That's where I am. But we will see. We'll see where things go. All right. All right. So let's get into the mock draft here. First pass through. We're using NFL mock draft database for this one. And here we go. We've got Tyler Warren available. We've got Jalen Walker available. An increasingly, interesting guy. People have all over the place on draft boards. Josh Simmons, a lot of people have Josh Simmons going to the Seahawks. I don't like that pick. I don't think that he's a guard. I think he is just a tackle. I think he could be a very good tackle. I think that's the wrong pick for the Seahawks. They should not be picking a pure tackle. I think he's not on my list of a first round option. Tyler Booker is available in this particular rendition. Walter Nolan's there. Kenneth Grant is there. Nick Scourton's there. You got a lot of really interesting names. And so for me, the first thing that comes to mind is trade back. Tyler Warren's there. I don't think I'm quite at the place where I'm walk up and give them the card if he's there. He's a blue chip guy, so maybe. But in this case, I'm going to take a look at trade options. So Arizona, no, not interested. What were the trade offers? All right, trade offers. Nope, not interested. Let me make a trade offer a little bit further down. Who do we want to talk to? Let's talk to the Chargers. The Chargers are our buddies. We've got guys down there with the Harbaughs and Mike McDonald. So let's trade 22. Let's trade for their 55th pick. Let's see if they'll do that. Ooh, they say that's not fair. All right, what if we include a 4th round pick? That's 5th round pick. Oh wait, 1 and 4. That's not even good enough, huh? They want a 3rd round pick for a 2nd round pick. So let's do this. I don't know that I would actually make this deal, but I'm curious. This basically would empty out we'd have only 2 2nd rounds and we wouldn't have a 3rd round pick. Let's see how this plays out. All right, so here we are at 22. Tyler Warren's still there, so we could take him. Luther Burden, the receiver's there. I don't think that's where you go. Tyler Booker's there. Kenneth Grant is there. Nick Manowari's there. Donovan Jackson's there. So we're going to take Tyler Warren. We haven't done that for a while. I think taking Tyler Warren at 22 is a good pick. I'm kind of curious how this plays out now with 2 2nd round picks. Love this. Donovan Jackson and Gray Zabel are both there. I really love Donovan Jackson. I don't think Gray Zabel is going to last this long. I just don't believe it. So I'm not going to take Gray Zabel, even though that would be my pick. You've got some other names, TJ Sanders, Shamar Turner, Marcus Bowe. So we pick again just a few picks later. So what I'm going to do here, this could be fun. I'm going to take Donovan Jackson here. And then, oh man, I was hoping that Gray Zabel would still be there. I was going to take him again at 55. You could take Jonas Avenaya. Could take Marcus Bowe. Harold Fannin, the guy that could be a fullback for you if you wanted to. Jack Besh. That's an interesting one, but I think that you might be getting a little bit too much on offense. I almost think that that's a good pick, to be honest. I think that might be a logical one. Omar Norman Lott's a guy I love. So he's someone that I could see taking here. Demetrius Knight's a quality player. Darian Porter at corner is an interesting one. Ooh, this is a tough one. I'm not a big Donovan Ezeraku guy, and I definitely am not an Ariante or Suri guy. So those guys are not high on my board. Cam Williams, I think, is just too much of a project. I'm not interested in him. I could kind of talk myself into Jonas Avenaya as another guard, but I think he's a lot like Satawa Laumea, at least from the project perspective. I think they're good athletes and good movers. I'm just not sure you need another one of him. Yeah, this is kind of a tough call. I think Jack Besh is the guy I feel best about at this point. Him or Omar Norman Lott are the two guys I'm going to take Omar Norman Lott because I just think I think he's a can't miss as a pass rusher, and I think the Seahawks need more help in pass rushing. So I'm going Omar Norman Lott. It's tough because I really like Jack Besh, and I think having him and Tyler Warren come together and then adding them to JSN, that's hard to pass up. I actually think that would be a really, really nice combo. Now we're all the way down to the 4th round because we traded our 3rd round pick to get 2 second-round picks. And here we are in the 4th round. We have got Dylan Gabriel. We've got Olufemi Oladejo. That's an interesting one. I could definitely talk myself into him as a pass rusher. Kyle McCord as a quarterback, I could talk myself into. Ricky White as a receiver. JJ Pegues. Ooh, we haven't done a JJ Pegues draft yet. Let's do it. Let's take JJ Pegues. We've got another defensive tackle who can potentially be your fullback. That's just a fun pick. Olufemi would have been a better choice, but I'm taking Pegues. We've got a 325-pound fullback. Here we are in the 5th round. Ricky White's available, not Miles Frazier. I love him. Could add him to the mix at guard. Aeneas Peebles. We've already taken 2 defensive linemen. I don't think you can do that. Jonah Monheim. Interesting center option. CJ West. Again, I don't think you can take another defensive tackle. Seth McLaughlin. That's actually a great pick. We're going to take Seth here in the 5th round. He's coming off the injury. This is late enough. Jamar Muhammad. Oof. Tyler Shuck. No, we're going to take Tyler Shuck. That is a better pick at this point. I don't think he'll be available at this point, but we're going to give it a shot. And then here we are. Oh, Miles Frazier's just sitting there. I can't let him sit there any longer, guys. I really like Miles Frazier. Just going to double check, see if there's anything else I would do. I mean, Monheim or McLaughlin at center are both really good choices as well. Let's take Jonah Monheim. I'm going to take Jonah Monheim, add to the interior offensive line position group. And then with our last 2 picks here, I do like Ja Joyner a little bit at edge. He's an interesting player. McLaughlin's still there. I don't think you need to do that. I'm taking Jabbar Muhammad. I really like Jabbar Muhammad at corner. Some other people are starting to figure it out. I think he's a quality corner. Last pick, Kalen Mullings. So this is another guy we talked about with Dane Brugler yesterday. Former linebacker, moved to running back. Could be a guy that you try to put at fullback. Jalen Conyers, a blocking tight end. So I like him as well. You've not added a linebacker. RJ Oben, I love at edge, and you haven't added any edges. I think I'm going to take RJ Oben. I think he has some interesting upside. I liked what I saw from him in the draft or at the Senior Bowl. There's actually some pretty interesting names. Isaac Tesla, the receiver, really interesting athlete at that position. I don't know. There's some really good names still left here out in the 7th round. Jimmy Horn, the receiver from Colorado, another name that's pretty appealing this late. Clay Webb. I don't know that I could take another interior offensive lineman, but he's probably worth it. Oh my gosh. All right. I am taking RJ Oben. All right. So I don't know how I feel about this draft class, guys. Tyler Warren, I feel good about at 22. Donovan Jackson, I just really love Donovan Jackson. Omar Norman Lott, I feel like the 2 second-round picks are both starting players for many years and potentially impact players. Pegues is a guy I'm really interested in him. Tight end to defensive tackle, played fullback, had 7 touchdowns rushing last year as a 325-pound fullback. I think he's athletic enough that he could still block for you on outside zone. Tyler Shuck at quarterback is a great pick that late. Jonah Monheim, I think, has starting upside. Jabbar Muhammad, I really like as a corner, and I think is kind of the ideal cornerback addition for the Seahawks that can allow Devin Witherspoon to play wherever he needs to play. And then RJ Oben is a guy that I think he flashed for me in drills, in position drills, and his movement. I think he's got upside, and I think in the 7th round, that's a great pick to make in that regard. So I don't mind that draft. I don't mind that draft. Let's do one more. We're gonna do a different draft sim. We're gonna do let's do Pro Football Network. I'll pull this up for you guys, and we're going to do this one really quickly just to see a different draft board. Let's do Pro Football Network. Okay, so we're going to do 7 rounds. We're going to do fast. We're going to do Seahawks, and here we go. All right, boom. Here we are at 18. You've got some interesting names. Armand Membu's there. Turn in the card. Done. Armand Membu's pick number 1. Now we get to pick 50. And pick 50, you've got your guard. You could go quarterback with Jackson Dart here. Darian Porter. I'm going to take Darian Porter. I like him at corner. We haven't taken him yet. I think that's an interesting one at this point. Let's take Darian Porter to solidify our secondary and potentially give us options with Reek Woolen if he is not going to be on the roster past this year. Don't know what's going to happen there. Now we are in the 3rd round. Tez Johnson's interesting. Deion Walker's a guy I loved. There's Omar Norman Lott, so I could definitely take him again. Shamar Turner is a guy that makes some potential sense. We have not taken a tight end. So Elijah Arroyo in the 3rd round is really interesting. Jordan Birch is really interesting. This is a tougher choice. I think let's take the best player I think is available here. I think Omar Norman Lott is probably the top guy. Him or Arroyo are the top guys on my list. We're going to lean towards offense. If there's a tie between 2 guys, we're going to lean towards offense because I think that's where the team needs the most help. So we're going to take Arroyo. I think there's also more defensive linemen available, so I think you'll be able to still get a good quality defensive lineman. All right. There's Darius Alexander, somehow available in the 4th round. Like I said, Jordan Phillips. We have not taken Jordan Phillips yet. Jordan Phillips, 6'3", 320-pound nose tackle from Maryland. He's on the freaks list from Bruce Feldman. He's an interesting guy. So I actually think we're going to take Jordan Phillips. We have not taken Jordan Phillips yet. I think he is a great fit next to Byron Murphy for many years to come. Then, there's JJ Pegues again. Ooh, maybe. Jonah Monheim's available. Jake Bringingstool, who's another guy who's a good blocking tight end. There's Olafemi Oladejo. Let's take a look at Upton Stout. Ooh, I can't take another corner, but I really like Upton Stout. So we've taken our guard. We've taken now a tight end. We've taken a corner and a defensive tackle. So it would be great to add a linebacker to the list. Let's kind of see what we've got available. There's Jack Kaiser. I do like Jack Kaiser quite a bit. All right, we're going to do Jack Kaiser. I think he's got a chance to be a Blake Cashman style coverage backer. I think he's an interesting guy. I was tracked as one of the fastest linebackers at the Senior Bowl. Here we are in the 6th round. The 6th round. Monheim's available. Aeneas Peoples is available. Luke Lachey. Jalen Conyers, a guy I do like there. He's a guy that has played multiple positions. We're going to take Jalen Conyers because he's a guy that could end up being your fullback, and also could end up being, there's Willie Lampkin, another option that could be a fullback. One of the things that I like about Conyers is he can play a little bit of the oh my gosh, what's the guy on? I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. The Saints, quarterback, 35 years old. Gosh darn it. It's driving me crazy. Yeah. Anyway, you guys know who I'm talking about. Taysom Hill. Thank you. God, that was driving me crazy. All right. So yeah, Conyers, I think, has a little bit of Taysom Hill to his game. And that's kind of an interesting ad. But Monheim is more projectable. I'm going to go ahead in this particular case. Oh, I like Cam Jackson a lot. He's a big man, nose tackle. Dude, this is a tough one, guys. This is a tough one. I think I'm going to go with I'm going to go with Jonah Monheim. I don't love that. I really like I'm so defensive oriented. I always want to take the defensive guys. All right, so here we are back up again. Cam Jackson and Peebles are still there. I think those are both great picks. Luke Lachey's there. Conyers is still there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take Cam Jackson. I think he's a better fit for what they might potentially need. And then we're going to see who's available here. 212. Peebles is still there. I just don't know that he's the perfect fit for what the Seahawks are looking for. Conyers. All right, we got Conyers. We're getting him in the 7th round. I think that's an ideal 7th round pick. So this is, whoops, are we picking again? Oh, we are picking again. For our last pick. Oh, there's Nick Martin, linebacker. I think that's a great pick if you can get it. In fact, I think we'll just probably pick Nick Martin. Tyler Shuck is available. I don't think that's realistic. Yeah, let's take we could take Luke Lachey as another blocking tight end, but I don't think we're going to take 3 tight ends in this draft. Let's take Nick Martin. I like Nick Martin as another linebacker option. You've already got one, probably not necessary, but gives you some special teams flexibility. So Armand Membu, Darian Porter, Elijah Arroyo. Those first 3 picks, interesting. I love Membu's like an ideal pick. Porter's a guy I think has tons of upside. Maybe will be one of the biggest freaks at the combine next week. Elijah Arroyo, also one of the biggest athletic freaks at the combine next week. So I love the first 3 picks. Jordan Phillips, I think, has a lot of upside as a interior defensive lineman. Jack Kaiser, I think, has starting potential as a linebacker, inside linebacker. Jonah Monheim could be a starter at center. Cam Jackson, I think, is great depth at nose tackle and is a physical boy, physical man. Jalen Conyers is, I think, a Taysom Hill-like player who could also potentially play fullback for you. Wildcat quarterback, has that in his background. And then Nick Martin, the linebacker from Oklahoma State, I think is a good flyer on another linebacker. So, yeah, I think I like this draft. I like this draft a decent amount. There's parts of this that I'm still feeling out the middle rounds, because I think you got to figure out what you're going to do with linebacker, corner, defensive tackle, wide receiver. Are you going to do anything there? I think the wide receiver group is so weak. If you don't get one of just a few handful of guys, I just would skip wide receiver almost entirely in this class. So, yeah, I think that you're a better team with that draft. I think you got a lot of big, thick guys to play a lot of really important positions. Even Darian Porter at 6'2", 200 pounds at corner, you're getting really big on the outside. I like that class. I think that's a physical, gritty draft class that we just had. All right, everybody. Appreciate all of you. We got 5 Hawk Blogger memberships gifted by Saucy Sasquatch. So appreciate you. Thank you for giving away those. I will be back hopefully tomorrow with Jeff Simmons. I will definitely be back tomorrow, hopefully with Jeff Simmons. We'll give you some more coverage there. I'm sure there'll be more news to react to. Until then, I am Brian Nemhauser. This has been episode 333 of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care. Have a great rest of your Friday.